On September 1st, 1985, an expedition led by Robert Ballard discovered the wreck of the RMS Titanic 73 years after she sank. In the decades since, over 5,500 artifacts have been raised from the Titanic wreck site and displayed around the world in exhibitions by a company called RMS Titanic Incorporated. RMS Titanic Incorporated is the salver in possession of the wreck site, which means they are the only entity that is allowed to go down to the wreck site and bring artifacts up. One of the stipulations of this responsibility, RMS Titanic Incorporated must care for every single artifact they recover for the life of the artifact. So for some of these items, potentially the rest of time, RMST must care for the artifact. And today, we are going to speak to the Director of Collections at RMS Titanic Incorporated. We will speak about the artifacts, her role in caring for them. We will talk about the upcoming RMST expedition to the wreck site. We will talk about molds. We will talk about rust. It's going to be exhilarating. So in our never-ending quest to bring ourselves closer to Titanic, I think we should talk to someone who has literally held Titanic in the palm of her hand. I now call Tomasina Ray to come forward and take the stand. Tomasina Ray, thank you for joining me. Welcome to this weird podcast that no one knows about at this moment except for us.
Well, I am very excited to be here and to know about it.
Yes. I'm hoping this is episode 7. This might be episode 7. I'm not sure yet.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, we're going to see how this all turns out. So if people are watching this, thank you for watching and listening in podcast form. But I'm very excited to have you here because these episodes that I've been doing, I've been a little stressed about them because I never know, is this really going to be that interesting? Are people going to be that interested in what I have to say or what this guest has to say? But today, I am actually not nervous at all because I know this will be interesting because this is a conversation I want to have with you. Please tell everybody who you are and who you work for and what you do.
All right. Fair start. I am Tomasina Ray, and I am the Director of Collections for the Titanic Artifacts. So I manage all the day-to-day care, all the exhibition work with them, and just making sure they last as long as possible.
Amazing. And the reason I wanted to have you on early in the podcast is sort of my goal for this whole endeavor is to bring people closer to Titanic. And I usually do that through survivor testimony and whatnot, because I just think that's the best way in. But I don't know. I think you could argue no one is closer to Titanic than you are, because you are so close to the actual thing in a lot of ways, which I think is very cool. So I think you will help us get closer to Titanic. Do you feel that way in your day-to-day?
Absolutely. I feel privileged to be as close as I am to the artifacts. It's one of those things where, growing up, you never think you're going to be the person handling the Titanic on a day-to-day basis, right, or knowing exactly where each part of it is that we have. So it's fascinating every day. We see something new every day. And we just get to touch it, which, growing up, that was the thing. When I went to museums, I always wanted to be the kid who touched something at a museum. And so that's kind of what led me down this path. So now I do get to touch things every day, and they're important things, and it's important to take care of them.
So first major question as we dive into what it is that you do and what the experience is like and all that. And I know I've asked you this question before, but I get to hear the answer again. What was your relationship to Titanic before you got involved in all of this?
Yeah, so up until this job, Titanic wasn't part of my life, right? The movie came out in 97, and I was definitely one of the kids in the theater watching it and fangirling over Leonardo DiCaprio. But it wasn't something that was like super in my soul or super in my zeitgeist on a day-to-day basis. So I didn't pay much attention. And then I got to college and I got a degree in art history. And I had this weird, you graduate with a degree in art history and your brain and your parents just go, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to make a career out of this? So I took that to a degree in museum studies, and I focused on collections care and management. So that I could work with a collection directly. I could work with art or artifacts on a day-to-day basis. And then I just threw my resume out around the country. I grew up in Seattle. It's very, very cold and very, very rainy most of the year. So I really didn't want to be cold and wet. So I made like a line across the country and I was like, south of here looks okay. This area looks good. So I was very strategic in my places that I looked. And I just got really, really lucky by this company saw my resume. They saw the work I had done with some of the museums in Seattle, and they flew me out for an interview. And less than a month later, I was in a car driving out to Atlanta.
What is sort of like a normal day for you like? I assume you're at your location in Atlanta right now.
It's my lovely office.
Beautiful. Love the Titanic in the background.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's Titanics all over the place there. But what is a normal day like for you?
So we work out of our artifact storage facility so that we can be close to them. We can go check on them every day. So usually I'll come in, I'll do a quick walk through the building, just do a quick check, make sure climate control is still working, make sure there's nothing weird or off going on, which, does happen in a facility this big, in a warehouse this big. Sometimes I'll come in and one of our HVAC units might have stopped overnight for whatever reason. So I'll have to go figure that out. It's not very often, but it does happen. So there's things to be monitoring in the building itself, which is why if you want a work from home job, this is probably not a good one.
Right.
So there's a lot of things to do here. And then a lot of it is on my part, researching things for different upcoming exhibitions. I might try to find some artifacts that might not have been seen before, but might have something super relevant for a location coming up. Make those switches, make sure logistics are in place. I correspond a lot with fine art shipping companies. We call it white glove service, so that when we do ship the artifacts, they're in climate control as long as possible. They get the smoothest ride, the safest ride. So I'll check in with some of my partners on that and make sure any transits are booked. The best thing about this job is it's a mix of arts and crafts and artifact handling and, sitting at my desk all day, because I can go from doing the computer work and doing the pulling the lists and the research and whatever I need to do, even corresponding with you, yesterday about images. I can do that for like a couple hours, and then I can go in the back and I can work with the artifacts and walk around and, make them little perfect packing boxes. And
you told me that once that you really enjoy that part of the job.
I do. That's one of the things that I think when I initially started here as an assistant registrar, they were super happy that was one of the things I love to do, is just I could put in some headphones and build a box all day, every day, and like make it custom for just a button. Yeah. And then I'm happy. Like that just makes me happy.
Yeah. What is something, maintaining these artifacts? What is something that you might have to do, or someone in your staff might have to do, if there's an artifact that needs maintaining? What does that look like?
We specialize in preventative care of the artifacts. And that's usually what you'll find in any museum collection is there's a collections manager or a registrar or someone who has education in preventative care. So we check for pests, we check for any rust, we check for any changes to the artifact that might cause it to deteriorate faster. And then we look for the signs that it's time to call a conservator. So if there is something, for instance, we might notice like there might be some like bright green corrosion that might show up on a whistle. And that would be not something that I would be able to take care of because I'm not actually a trained conservator. I just know what to look for. And then I call in our conservator and I ask her either for advice for anything I can do to slow it for the time being until she can make it in, or if there's someone local that we can have treat it.
I will have said in the intro that RMST has recovered, as they say, 5,500 plus artifacts from the ocean floor. How many of those are in the building that you're in right now, do you think?
Oh, okay. Math time, which is not why I got into the arts.
Yeah, same.
So exactly, right? Like, so we say 5,500 artifacts for round numbers.
Yeah.
And then we have 5 touring exhibitions and 2 permanent exhibitions. And let's say there's an average of about 250 artifacts per exhibit. So I think we'll say I have 4,000 things here. But so one of the things about the company and the collection is that we're responsible for everything that we've recovered. And back in the day when we first started doing recovery dives, we weren't so good at knowing what we were collecting. The video is really bad. You can't really see what you're getting. So there's a lot of things that we can't use in exhibit. So even though we have 4,000 artifacts sitting here, math, I can't use most of them in an exhibition just because they're either too fragile or they're just a piece of something that might not be relevant.
Right.
It's a very hit or miss. And then I think one thing that's super interesting about that number is the Gladstone bag. So that is a purser's bag. And we recovered it in 87. And inside of it was a lot of valuables, including a lot of currency. And so when you parse the currency, it's over 700 bills.
Okay.
And it's like another 100 coins. So of that 4,000, now you have to take our records down about another 1,000. So that's
right, because it's like just duplicate things. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen in my work with RMST now, I've been sent like lists of like what artifacts will be in this exhibition, so I can do some research and make sure I know what I'm talking about when we get to the exhibition. And yeah, I'll notice that a whole page of artifacts is all the what are those called? Gratin.
The au gratin dishes.
Yeah, there's just so many of them, but they're technically all their own unique artifact. So yeah, that's I had not thought about the money part of it though. So yeah, you have thousands of artifacts there, but quite a few of them are individual bills and individual coins. How are these stored out there? I've been to this warehouse of yours, but I only saw one room, and I do want to talk about that room because it's fascinating. But the main storage area I've not seen. I doubt very many people do see it. It's obviously everything there is very delicate. People can't just come and go out of that room. But how are things stored there?
Everything is stored in climate control. So we have one room which has climate tailored to things that are organic. So the leather goods, the paper goods, and the textiles, and wood. We still have some wood fragments. So those things are in one room, which has a more ambient humidity of about 50% RH. And then that room, we keep it about 70 degrees, plus or minus 2, museum standard. And then there's the second room, which is a little bit bigger, and that has the metals and the non-organic materials. So metal, glass, ceramic, some asbestos. Turns out, asbestos was a very popular thing back in the day. So a lot of the wiring was covered in asbestos materials. And so those things are kind of segregated and wrapped very, very well. Sometimes I joke that this job is going to end up killing me. But it's just asbestos.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
But yeah, that room is kept at actually a lower humidity because the metals will rust if there's too much humidity in the space. So that's kept around 35 to 40 RH. And we keep also at 70 plus or minus 2 degrees. The biggest things that can hurt an artifact are temperature fluctuations. and humidity. So those are the things we watch the most. Temperature fluctuations will make things expand and contract and expand and contract. And over time, that'll weaken a material. Mm-hmm. So those things, it's important to keep them in a stable temperature as much as possible. The more that it goes up and down, the worse it is for the object. And then humidity, like I said, we're mostly concerned about that for the rust factor in the metals. And then in the organic things, it could actually, the more humid a space is, like mold can grow if anything happens. So that's one of the main things we have to look out for with like the books and the paper things that we have. They've all been treated when they went through conservation initially for mold and fungus, but we always have to keep an eye on those things just in case they might have missed a little bit, because that's one of those things that's just notoriously hard to get rid of.
Yeah, when I was visiting your building there, we were looking at stuff and chatting, and you got sort of like an alarm. Basically, you got like a text on your phone that somebody in a different part of the building had found mold on something, and you like had to run, like you had to go take care of this because it needs to be. It's just terribly important. Like these artifacts are fragile, and they kind of, it's like they're always attacking itself. And you have to keep it at bay, which is as cool as a Titanic job can be.
One of the nice things actually about Titanic is because there was not very much synthetic material back then, a lot of the things are fairly stable. Metals can be fairly stable once they've been conserved, and everything else. But the things we really, really, really have to keep an eye on are the synthetic materials, the early plastics that were kind of starting to be used in the imitation ivory that they were trying to use. Wow, like those things become very brittle and sticky sometimes. So we just have to really like keep an eye on any change with any of the artifacts.
And this goes for the artifacts that are in the exhibits as well. Like they're just because they're in an exhibit, like if you go to the Orlando exhibit, the Vegas exhibit, or one of the traveling ones, they're not just the strongest things they're perfectly, they've been conserved and they're good to go. When we were in Orlando for the anniversary, one of the nights you and your staff were going into the exhibit to swap out some artifacts. Would you explain what that was, if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a perfect example to bring up because, first of all, to our Orlando employees, I'm actually sorry that I had to take the case away. But I know that they had joked and they had a running thing about this case being haunted. And so when I got down there to actually see the case, it actually sent off all my alarm bells. So one of the things that I noticed right away was there was synthetic material in that case. We had one of the fake ivory mirrors and brushes in it, and it was doing something as those chemicals in those synthetic materials break down. It was doing something to the micro chamber environment that's in that case. And we're not sure what it is yet. We have conservators looking at it, but we looked down and you could see these fine little needle crystals growing off of the labels in the case. Another one of the things that was in there was a little cosmetic jar. It was like a little ceramic jar with a lid, and the cream or whatever the cosmetic was that was in that jar is still in that jar.
Wow. So
that could be another thing that's interacting with the synthetic material, and we just don't know. So the things are here back at the lab rusting. We're keeping an eye on them a little bit closer. But it's, that's one of those alarming things, and that's why even though we pick the most stable things to put on exhibition, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be stable. They have to be monitored. So my one day that I was in your building and you ran off to take care of the mold, we were in the one room I got to see was a room with a bunch of shelves, and on the shelves were items that
just have no identification for them. Just how fascinating that you have a room full of mystery objects.
We do. There's so many things that's one of those things, the initiatives that I really want to start working on is identifying some of the things that have been back there for so long that they, among the 4,000 pieces, they just kind of get pushed to the side because we do have so much to take care of and we're a small staff. So we have some unidentified camera pieces. We think they're camera pieces. They're very likely camera pieces, but it would be so great to be able to identify exactly what kind of camera they came from.
There's someone on this planet who could walk in that room and tell you the model, the make of it, the company that would make it, and then you reach out to the company and find out who, do they still have their records from 1912? You start to go
like
down
original catalog, something
Yeah.
where we can see it.
Yeah, that's the thing that I find so fascinating about what you do and what your staff does with RMST. And I didn't know this was what you guys did until last year when I went to the speaker series, my first speaker series last year. And, you go to these different presentations, and Jeffrey Taylor, who works with the artifacts as well, he gave a presentation. And I saw that it's not just that you guys are keeping the artifacts stable so we can view them forever, but it's also a whole lot of research. It's also, here's this bag, a purse, and it had some possessions in it, but no identification. It's not, not every bag that you bring up has a contract with a passenger's name on it. Sometimes it does. And sometimes we're able to go, okay, great. We know exactly who this trunk belonged to because Howard Irwin's name is on everything. But sometimes it's just a purse with money in it and a picture of somebody and no identification, but it's a picture, that's a lot to go off of. And what your staff might do is really look at the artifact for any sort of clues, and maybe through new technology find out that there used to be letters imprinted on the purse, and then the purse, you look up that company and they still exist and they still have their records from 1912, and they go through the records and there's one name that matches a passenger's name on Titanic, and suddenly we have a purse that belongs to we have a name for the item. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the end goal. How wonderful would it be to have a name for every item that you have? I mean, it's impossible that you'll ever be able to do that, but in a perfect world, there's not a single Titanic passenger or crew member who doesn't have something on land for us to remember them by, in a way.
Oh my gosh, that would be, for me as an objects person, that would be the dream, right? Like, it's one of the benefits of having relationships with like researchers and historians like you is like you can look at something that maybe I don't recognize or understand, but to be able to find something that can identify a passenger or give a name back and give a little bit more of a life story back to each person that was on Titanic would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think objects are so important to understanding the past.
Yeah, and there's just so many people on Titanic's passenger list and crew lists that we just don't know anything about them, and we don't have pictures of, and we don't, but to have something that belong to them, or something that they might have interacted with, to put that in an exhibit and have their name next to it, to just to tell people in Orlando going to a cool exhibit, they'll go home with a new memory in their head that it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that people take that away from the exhibits when they go, that they really are interacting with people that otherwise would have been forgotten to history, unfortunately.
Well, and like you kind of hinted at too, the research is ongoing. The technology changes all the time, and we're able to identify maybe a mark or text or writing that we weren't able to see before, something that might be a clue. The internet gets better every day. Mm-hmm. In the 12-ish years that I've been involved with this collection, I used to search the internet for maybe a brand and nothing would come up. And now the internet's so much more full that I can do that same search again and I might get new information. I might be able to find a different clue on an artifact. It's just a matter of looking and patience and making the right connections.
Yeah. Yeah. We often discuss, you'll have an artifact and on it is a bunch of numbers and, who knows what the numbers mean. So you look them up and, it's a piece of metal, probably from the engine room. So you start looking into engineer terminology. Do they still use these numbers today? Like, is that going to give us any clues? And then start reaching out to people who work with engines and like, do these numbers mean anything to you? It's just, it's a little puzzle, a little bit of investigative work, which is pretty cool.
I really loved the one we did the other day when there was that marble ledge, mm-hmm. and we had never noticed the numbers on the side of it before because it had been sitting on a shelf other way. Right. So we were able to see it. And so immediately we're like, James,
yeah,
do you have any idea what these numbers could mean?
Yeah. Cause what you want, like the hope is those numbers might signify where on the ship it came from. Like that's exactly. such a big thing. Like, oh man, if these numbers mean a certain cabin or a certain place on the ship, that would go a long way for us to understanding the sinking, understanding this piece. And then, yeah, if it goes on exhibition, you can put next to it where it came from. It just adds more context and it's educational. But that's the challenge is, we got into this big discussion about, would these numbers have been put here by the shipyard making a piece of furniture out of marble? Was it made by the people who made the marble in the first place before it even was sent to Harlan and Wolff? Or, it goes down this rabbit hole of like, what could these numbers possibly mean? And I think we kind of came to the conclusion with my team as well, who know a lot more about like Titanic's construction than I do, that, for them to chisel numbers into marble is not quite a Harlan and Wolff thing. Harlan and Wolff labeled a lot of their stuff, but they often labeled it with paint and pencil. And they'd write a cabin number on something so it would go on board. But these numbers, while we were not able to decide exactly what they meant, it just seemed like these numbers were for the marble people to put together this. Mm-hmm. And then it got to the shipyard, and then the shipyard, maybe they, on a piece of wood that we didn't recover, there's a cabin number on it, but we'll not have that. Yeah, it's very fun. I enjoy every time I get an email from you guys about, what do you think of this? I'm like, I don't know, but I've got 20 people I could ask. So we'll see if we can learn something today. I'm curious if you have any, I know I do, but if you have any artifacts that are very personal to you or that you just find so fascinating amongst your collection.
Well, much like your Howard Irwin trunk, I really, really love Marianne Meanwell's trunk, because she didn't live nearly as adventurous a lifestyle as Irwin and Suit Hall. She was, 63. She was traveling third class. She was coming back. Well, she was actually just immigrating to the United States to help her daughter, who was just widowed, to take care of her kids. And she died in the sinking. And if we didn't have her bag that we recovered, all we would know are the things that you can find in public record, like her birth date, her marriage certificates. There's no personality behind any of that. You can go to the city she lived in and all that, but you wouldn't get to know her interest in music. She had some sort of instrument strings, and we're not sure. There's one identification in there that they were banjo strings, but that seems a little odd.
Yeah.
So,
I looked into her a while ago, and it is amazing that she's one of those people, when you read their life story, she was born here, we think. We have no record of her until she was 22 years old. She was married at some point, the whereabouts of her husband, unknown. The fates of her parents, unknown. It's just, there's every bit of her life is maybe. And then like the one thing, is she boarded Titanic to, go see her daughter. And so these people, so she goes down with the ship and certainly would have been absolutely lost to history because there's just nothing to know about her. And then we have this bag that belongs to her, which just, gives her, continues her story a little bit.
And it's so clearly her go bag. Like, when you think about what you're going to keep in a go bag, if you have to get out of somewhere quick, or if you have to, if you're going somewhere, what are your most important documents that you put together? And it was, it's her reference as a good tenant. It's her immunization card so that she can immigrate to the U.S. And that talks a lot about the experience of someone traveling third class at the time, having to have all your immunizations, getting examined at Ellis Island. It really kind of encapsulates that experience that she would have been going through. We know because of the ticket in there that she was one of the passengers moved from Majestic to Titanic because of the coal strikes.
Right.
So there's just so many little tidbits. And her bag actually we have very, very few photos that we've recovered from the wreck site. And her bag actually has 3 of them.
Wow.
So they're remarkably well preserved. So it's just that we don't want to show those in an exhibition because light is one of the most damaging things that you can do to a photograph.
Wow.
Especially of that time period. So those things stay in a drawer until we have a way to better either display them or preserve them so that they won't fade, because light damage is irreversible.
Right. Yeah. And it's not like you can just scan it with a laser. I'm sure that'll just burn it up. So there's somebody like, now we have a photo and even just the fact that she had a letter saying she was a good tenant. Now we know one thing about her. She was a good tenant. And that to me makes me want to cry, that here's this person would have been lost to history, but at least we know she was a good tenant. And that's a nice feeling for us. The expedition is coming up. RMS Titanic Incorporated going to their 9th expedition to Titanic wreck site. No artifacts will be recovered this year. That's not the point. The point of this year is to image the wreck site to see how it's doing. I mean, it's been since 2010 since we've been down there. Other people have been, and it's been imaged and whatnot. But we need to see the state of things and scout out some artifacts for future recovery. That has to be pretty exciting for you because you said you've been associated with the collection for 12 years. So every artifact that you've ever interacted with, cared for, or researched was recovered long before you got there, or at least 2 years before at the very shortest. So it must be exciting to think that potentially next year or soon that new artifacts will be added to the collection that will be recovered during your time.
That is very exciting. I'm excited about the imaging just because it's, like you said, it's as solvers in possession. I think being able to document the ship and being able to make sure everything is okay down there and document the changes over time, just like we do with the artifacts. That's important. That's part of a responsibility. To add to the collection and be able to add to the stories that we have would be amazing before they're gone.
Is there an artifact down there, or theoretically down there, like just something that could be down there that you would love to see in the collection, that or is there a genre of artifact that you take care of now that you'd like to see more of?
I think for me, going back to the passengers and finding things that are identifiable and tie back to people is important. The best chance we have of that is always with a bag or with a piece of luggage, just because it might have someone's name written on the inside of their shirt,
right,
or on their towel, or just a calling card that we are able to trace back to who was this person going to go see, right. Who did this person know? And those are kind of the more fun puzzle pieces, right? Those are the things that give us the stories and things to think about and tell. But I know that there's ship's pieces that everyone else are very excited about to try to find.
Sure.
One of the main things is the grand staircase cherub.
Right.
We have the base, we have this really ornate bronze piece that would have been sitting on the balustrade that the cherub would have stood on, but we don't have the cherub. We have the little one from the aft grand staircase, and he's a good 13, 14 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's only 13 or 14 inches high.
Yeah.
So once you get to the main grand staircase cherub, which is about 2.5 feet?
It's huge
maybe?
in comparison. Yeah.
He's going to be,
baby.
He's hefty.
So if you're on the expedition, say next year, and they bring up a bin of interesting things, do you happen to know what is the I know I'm from what I understand, the first thing is you have to put it back in water. That's you need to keep it out of the oxygen. Do you know the process of how they begin the preservation process?
Yeah. So once something comes up onto the ship, it'll get rinsed off a little bit just to remove any of the just the caked on muck or sand or silt or whatever you want to call what's down there.
Yeah.
And something that's actually really important to do is anything that does get hosed off, you really want to put it through a sieve because you don't know what parts might get washed off.
Sure.
So we definitely want to make sure we don't lose anything important. If it's up on the surface, we're going to try to find it and take care of it. So making sure that we check what's there, and then we will catalog, we'll give it a number. If you've ever, you know this, we've gone through the exhibit on this, but the artifact numbers that are on the exhibition labels, the first 2 digits are the expedition year that it was recovered. And then the last 4 digits are sequential, the order of which that object was recovered.
Okay.
So 870013 was recovered before 870014.
Sure. Yeah.
And so on and so on. So we'll be up there with a log. Someone will be in charge of, taking the notes and documenting. The other person will be checking it, giving the notes, and then also tagging it with a number so that it can be tracked. And then it goes into storage. And we, like you said, we actually still have the bins from the last time we did artifact recovery was 2004. And I still have the big green bins in the back that we'll fill with seawater, and we'll sort things by material. Cool. So that when we come to land, we can send them to the proper conservation facility, because conservation is not just a blanket, one size fits all. The organic things have to go to someone who knows how to deal with those. Yeah. And that might be a separate leather person and a separate paper person. And then the metals go to someone who can deal with those.
Wow.
So it's really a lot of, again, that fun physical work, and you get to see things as they come up. So I think it'd be a huge privilege to be on that expedition, but it'll be a lot of work too. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's all fun all the time. I'm sure it's, and from what I understand, it's also very emotional, especially when the ship is slowly filling with these very emotional pieces from Titanic. Thank you so much for joining. I knew that this would be a great episode because this is just something that I want to know, because you have sort of like a rock star job for Titanic nerds like myself. So I was just excited to talk to you, and I'm excited to talk to you in the future about it. Maybe you join again one day and we'll talk about a different, we'll have a pre-expedition 2025 episode. If I'm still doing this in a year, we'll see. But thank you so much. It'll have to just
be a special follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you so much for doing this, and we will talk again soon.
Looking forward to it.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. For all future episodes, please like, subscribe, share our podcast. The more people that listen, the more likely I will continue doing this. And folks, this is actually my last episode on land for a little while. If you haven't heard from one place or another, I am absolutely thrilled to tell you that my next episodes will be recorded from a ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. In every single episode to this point, I have told you that you would be surprised to find how close our efforts will bring us to Titanic herself. And I was being extremely literal about that because the next few episodes will be recorded just 2.5 miles above Titanic herself. That's right, I will be joining in person for the expedition to the Titanic wreck site. We will be imaging the wreck. We will be learning what we can about the wreck. We will be scouting out artifacts for future recovery. We will be having an adventure, and I'm going to take you with me if you'll join me in our next few episodes. So if you don't want to miss our expedition episodes, definitely subscribe. Definitely do all the things you need to do to be notified that those episodes are up. And with that, if you have any Titanic questions or corrections, email me at witnesstitanic@gmail.com, and we'll get another discussion started. Until next time, folks, I will see you in the middle of the North Atlantic. My name is James Penca, and thanks for joining me on Witness Titanic.